Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of you for attending today. Mr. Baraka, I'm happy to say that my wife and I shop at your stores a lot, way more than I would like, but wonderful materials that you sell. I'm extremely interested in your efforts to make sure that access to these public lands is preserved, and to that end, or to that point, there's a movement, and it's been around for a long time, to lock up these lands and turn them into spaces where no one can really go. Has your committee addressed this issue? I bring it up because I'm from Oregon, and I actually represent about 3/4 of the state, and a huge amount of public land within my district. And the challenge has always been to maintain the ability to access those lands. And as time has passed, many acres of those lands, if not many square miles, have been locked up, so preventing anybody from really going into them. And there's been a movement in the national forests to do away with roads and to make it even more difficult for anyone to access, much less those who have disabilities. So my question is, I think you mentioned 22 million people that are customers of your co-op. That's a lot of political power. So is your committee addressing these access issues, and if so, how?
So we are still trying to assemble the political wherewithal, if you will, the advocacy wherewithal of our member base. We appreciate it when members of Congress are also members of REI. I would, on land closures or loss of access, our lived experience is that individual cases often bring individual circumstances and battles, if you will. And so at a national level, if you will, it's really hard for REI Co-op to make a general statement about the types of problems that you're referring to. When there is an access issue in the vicinity of our stores or where our members are concentrated, we're a co-op. We do engage, but we do try to find those win-win outcomes.
It would be hugely helpful, given the scope of your customer base, if you could take more of an aggressive position in maintaining this access, because you enjoy, you have a huge footprint. And so I'm just saying there's great danger in people not standing up and saying, we can't access these lands any longer because of whatever type of a approach has been used to lock them up. And I guarantee you there are approaches to lock them up that cover literally millions of acres. So I just encourage that. On page 11 of the Veterans and Parks Act, there's a mention of permit streamlining. And of course, we've been working here in this committee to try to streamline the use of NEPA and other things. And it's no surprise that this paragraph is in this bill because many, I'm guessing, folks, veterans, don't really have 4 or 5 years to wait for permitting to actually happen. And so another thing that your group could help us with is encouraging the streamlining approach that we've been trying to use with NEPA, but for reasons far greater than those, or not greater, but in addition to those that are in this bill. And you have this committee, you have this 22 million people. I'm just encouraging you to use that power to accomplish the purposes that I think that are set forth in these bills. Can you give us any hope that you might be able to do that in your committee, or is it just too difficult politically?
It's not too difficult politically, especially relative to permitting. In fact, Congressman, at the break, my colleague Naz and I were talking about the challenges that she faces as an REI employee in securing permits from the federal government for the programs that the co-op facilitates on federal public lands. And the wait time, it's a drag on our business. As a result, we've actually been working on permitting reform up here on the Hill for almost close to a decade, but I'm told that we should be cautiously optimistic that this committee and on the Senate side, there'll be passage of the SOAR Act and inclusion in a bill that may see the president's signature by the end of the year. So on permitting specifically, cautious optimism after a decade of work. On the engagement of our member base, my colleague Beck at headquarters, Alicia, will be overjoyed to hear that Congress is asking that we step up our use of our member base to use their voice. And I'll bring that to the company leadership and say, Congress is asking us to do a little bit more with our member base in terms of advocacy. Thank you.
As long as that's, our kind of advocacy, we be careful with this.
We're all here because we love the outdoors.
Yeah. Yield back.